Hocking. So we'll put 7.3 Councillor Hocking update. Sorry, Councillor, I know we have an update for you anyways. And 7.4, the Garden Club letter.
Okay. Okay. So do we have a motion to adopt the minutes? Sorry, the agenda?
We did do that.
Okay, David, and seconder?
John?
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Looks like all the hands are up. And the minutes, motion to adopt the minutes? Don? David, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So the next item I need is the council referral. Arbutus Ridge Land Use Bylaw number 57, the amendment. I guess, Daniel, are you going to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. And I have just a quick presentation if you want, just for me to talk through the referral and the application.
Great.
Sorry, bear with me. Where did I go?
This is Zoom, of course.
Yeah. All right. Sorry for again. Share screen. Okay. So I have a rezoning application referral from council for a rezoning application at 1676 Melkin Creek Road. And I'll go through some of the backstory, but you did see this application before in November, and the application has changed in scope since you saw it last. So I'll try to give you that background. But so this is rezoning application. It's at 1676 Melkin Creek Road. Is this property on the north side of Melkin Creek Road? It's part of the Arbutus Ridge Comprehensive Development Zone, and it's a 4-hectare or 10-acre parcel. It's worth of photoing. Just by way of background, when you saw this in November, the application was for the entire Arbutus Ridge, or entire area 1 of the Arbutus Ridge zone, so the entire area zone for essentially single-family homes, to permit accessory residential use, which is the secondary suites. So the current zoning in this Arbutus Ridge, allows detached dwellings, allows open space and public trails. It does not permit accessory residential use, so secondary suites. Throughout the entire zone, it has a number of other sort of density regulations, so a maximum lot coverage, a maximum floor area of all buildings, excluding garages and accessory buildings, of 260 square meters, and has a maximum number of accessory buildings on any lot of 2. So this is just for a reminder, when you saw the application in November, you moved that you support the rezoning application with a number of comments, so about permeable surfaces and water availability, stormwater management, pedestrian safety, public transportation, lot coverage not be increased, secondary suites not be available for short-term rentals, and consideration be given to the affordability of the suites to offset environmental and climate impacts. So when this came back to council in January, what council did based on feedback from the King Edward Bay water system is they essentially severed the rezoning application, and they directed staff to proceed with the portion that's outside of the King Edward Bay water district, and just to proceed with this one, proceed with this one portion that's outside the King Edward Bay water system, and not proceed with the other portion, with sort of the balance of the rezoning that falls within that municipal water system. Based on feedback from the water systems local advisory committee. So essentially what you have before you is this portion of the rezoning application on Melkin Creek Road. So the property in question, as I said, is a 4-hectare parcel. It has an active subdivision to subdivide into 4 parcels that's permitted in the zoning. And so this is showing that proposed lot layout as part of their subdivision. That's already in place and I think is nearing completion in terms of creating those 4 lots that under the current zoning would each be permitted a house. And the rezoning application is to permit them each to have an accessory residential use. So the amendment bylaw that received first reading from council and is for your referral would create a new area 4 in this CD zone that would cover this property. So 1676 Melkin Creek Road would permit the accessory residential use as a permitted accessory use. In terms of the floor area, so as I said, the zone has a maximum floor area of 260 square meters for a dwelling, and it excludes garage and accessory buildings. And so a question for council to consider was, is that 260, is that meant to include, secondary dwellings? And so the way the bylaw is now, that yes, it would. The 260 square meters is for dwelling use, and so it would apply. So people could choose to have, a house of 260 square meters, but if they want a secondary dwelling, that would come out of that 260 square meters, which is about 2,700 square feet, just for people who function in square feet. And then the third thing the bylaw does, it does some minor adjustments to the area boundaries within the zone, partly to reflect previous subdivisions that just differ slightly from that zoning map. And so the recommendation is Environment Climate Action Committee provide comments on the Arbutus Ridge rezoning and the bylaw 562 for council. And I'll stop sharing there.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. So do we have comments from committee members? Jeff, can you be the person to identify who's got their hand up, because I'm limited to the four people on the screen.
Will do. And Dawn is the first person.
I guess my question is, what does it mean when we're talking about just the part outside of the King Edward Bay water system? Does that mean that section outside of King Edward has its own water aquifer to draw upon?
I mean, it's a good question. I know that work has been done, like the Public Works Department has had urban systems, and I believe their EXP do like an aquifer study in West Side Water analysis on aquifers on the west side and on water use. I don't have that before me, but I mean, you're right. In essence, if you have a well on Melkin Creek Road, or you have it, slightly further north that's feeding into the King Edward Bay system, to some extent we're on the same island. We're drawing from the same water. There is, I mean, I remember that aquifer study. There is some difference in terms of things coming. Like there are a number of different aquifers on the west side that sort of come off of Mount Gardner slightly differently. So there is some sense of you can draw from different aquifers and different water sources, but big picture, it's largely the same water.
And Michaeli's up.
Sorry, you're muted, Michaeli.
I just wanted to dovetail into Dawn's comment. Is there any chance then that they will seek a water license from Melkin Creek?
The subdivision is to service them each on individual wells.
Okay, and then I wanted to check in on the secondary suites. If somebody installs a secondary suite above the garage, how does that work with the lot coverage maximum?
The way it works right now, sort of across the island, is if you have a detached secondary suite, it can be part of an accessory building. So people can have it, there's a floor area max for a detached secondary suite. And it can be in the same building as a garage, and the garage doesn't count to the floor area as long as they're separated. So we've made people like wall off the garage from the secondary suite and say, okay, we're counting the floor area just for the secondary suite, and we would still do the same. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, maybe I'll bring up my comments. On the first page, I'm happy to see that council has advised the applicant the need for a public information meeting for this bylaw. So thank you for doing that. I think that's a great idea. Okay. On the third page, I am very happy to see that you've the maximum floor area of 260 square meters would include the accessory residence use. That again, I'm really happy to see that. So that those properties aren't going to be kind of nickel and dimed as getting more of the land covered by impermeable building. And I like the conditions that are there. The need for water supply. I think that's kind of going to Don and McKaylee's point too. Is those buildings can't, those residents can't be built if it's shown that they don't have a water supply. I think that's great. And the hydrant location and that kind of thing is great. The last one on that list of 5, the statutory building scheme. What's that?
You know, and that, I mean, think about it, probably doesn't apply to this one specifically. So the Arbutus Ridge development is part of their subdivisions. They have a statutory building scheme. So essentially it's like the developer approving the design of the buildings going forward.
Okay.
And so when it was considering changes to them to allow the detached secondary suite, we're like, well, you have to review that and make sure that, you know, they sort of mesh and consider it. So yeah, I don't think it applies to this specific property.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing I'm wondering about slope stability, is that being taken into account for these lots? I haven't had a chance to look at the topography of that area, but just looking at the UN report talking about increased problems with storms and that kind of thing, land stability is going to be an increasingly important issue for Bowen.
Yeah, so the applicant had to provide a geotechnical report as part of their subdivision to determine, you know, the land was safe to subdivide. And what we've asked is for them to update that based on potential like second dwelling sites. So saying, okay, your geotech showed for each of the lots, you know, there's a place you could build a house and it won't destabilize the slope. And then if you're now saying, well, now there might be a second smaller dwelling, can that be done as well?
So does the geotech study take into account impacts of climate change, like bigger storms and that kind of thing?
I don't know this one specifically. It's fairly standard we get in reports that consider, you know, like an increase to the maximum rainfall, for example, but I don't know specifically this one.
Okay.
David
go
has
ahead.
a hand up. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
sure.
you're not done. I'm just letting you know then. In that case, David does have a hand up.
I've done a lot of talking, and I'm going to let David go ahead.
It was actually just, I thought that was a great question. And it's a question back to Daniel. It's something I simply don't know. So normally when we've got geotech reports, I assumed it was about the stability of the rock, you know, so that, do those reports include the overburden, the soil, and the, you know, ability or the worry that will raise that the soil will move if we get a heck of a lot of rain? So do the geotech, do they actually even look at that, or is it all about rock? I don't know.
It's more about rock, and that's more covered by like a civil engineer, I guess, if we're looking at like site, like stormwater management.
I see.
So we're saying you're not changing, the runoff patterns on the lot as a result of the development. And then as part of that, we would say, okay, and not only like current rainfall, but future rainfall.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Perhaps a follow-up by Bonny there?
I just want to know, Daniel, just in keeping with that theme about soil movement, could we ask for sedimentation erosion plans, comprehensive sedimentation erosion plans?
I think so. I'd have to look at the wording like in our subdivision bylaw, and essentially would be copying most likely.
Because I think it is relevant
Yeah.
on those properties. It's a little bit of a conflict of interest for me because I'm a downslope neighbor, but I just think in general, I think as a general comment, that the sedimentation erosion plans are important, and more so with deluges. So.
I'll just add, to take Bonny out of her conflict of interest. I walk the trail right behind Bonny's house and right through this very often, and it's very steep.
And Donna has his hand up.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a question that we're trying to ask, but we haven't gotten to it. And if it feels like something's missing. The environmental question about the latest IPCC report, should probably apply to everybody on the island, not just, Arbutus Ridge. So I don't know that that's a relevant question or that that's a necessary criteria to put on top of the developer. But just a comment.
Thanks, Don. I think our committee is going to have to be asking these questions often in our work. Daniel, I've got another question about the environmental and climate implications. The statement, the application does not anticipate to have ecological implications. I'm just wondering, after looking at the summary of what the other committees talked about, the Parks, Trails, and Greenways Committee, and I think our committee were a little worried about the implications on trails and beaches. This is with additional people. I think it's maybe not as important with just thinking about 4 lots, and that's changed. But again, I'm wondering about the cumulative effect of the development, the overall development at Arbutus Ridge on the flow in the creek, whose name I'm just forgetting the name of, and there's Bowen Bay right there, and there's eelgrass beds that would be impacted by sedimentation if there was a prolonged or a catastrophic event that caused sedimentation. So I'm not. Are you really taking into account the input about climate and ecological implications?
I think it's challenging to say, okay, what's the impact of potentially up to 4 secondary suites permitted within the existing building constraints of number of buildings and size of buildings. What is that impact? Is that sizable or not? I guess that I think it's big, perhaps not for this conversation, but I think we're going to have to start looking at the cumulative effect of development, not just the impact of one small development. So I think this is something maybe our committee is going to have to
be a watchdog about.
Don's got his hand up.
And just a comment to piggyback on Will's comment, and it's more of a statement, but that's a wonderful opportunity for the municipality to take a leadership role. Sorry, I couldn't miss that one.
And Michaela's got her hand up.
I just wanted to find out, I was doing a survey at a property to the southeast of there. The development permit was recently released, but one of the comments was about the invasive bamboo that's growing within Melkin Creek, and maybe doing a watershed-wide removal program or education program on that. Is there an opportunity to sort of tie in some education along with the development permit or the release of the permits for this?
Yeah, you mean like as part of the rezoning? Yeah, potentially. Yeah, or as, yeah, I'm just trying to think how that would be structured, but definitely something could be raised with the applicant.
And then just an additional comment about the cumulative effects. It's not just for climate change, but then the cumulative effects on the environment overall. So we would probably look at the island as a whole and look at the introduction of invasive species, the removal of habitat, the removal of trees as a whole island then, and discuss cumulative impacts. And that should probably be added to the terms of reference for the environmental assessments, for DP applications or for building permits, you know, if and when we get to that point.
Thanks, Michaela. Any more comments? That David, I see your hand is metaphorically up on your screen. You oh, hands down. All right, so no, any more comments from the committee? So I guess we go to the recommendation that
Does Michaela have something to add?
I was going to leave it, but I think I'm just going to put it out there just in case it needs to be said. Is there a reason that it was originally zoned for single dwellings only and then not accessory building? And is there then a change in the purpose that would change that reason? Or was it just simply that, you know, the map is like cut up into pieces and, you know, that should be single and not based on anything in particular?
Yeah, it's a question I've had a lot through this rezoning, and I've dug through the file and the staff reports from the original rezoning of Arbutus Ridge. And it's pretty silent. It's like when it came to council, it was just to rezone to allow this many dwelling units, and, you know, secondary suites, as we pointed out at the time, was just not part of the zoning. In terms of this, like this specific property, the applicant, I think, wasn't aware that their zoning changed, which, you know, because they're sort of this tacked on part to the Arbutus Ridge rezoning, and their zoning allowed them the 4 lots. They weren't aware that as part of that rezoning, they were now excluded from having secondary suites until they'd started the subdivision process. So I don't know the history, and it would be nice to know, but, you know, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michaela. So getting back to the recommendation that the Environment and Climate Advisory Committee provide the following comments. You've got the comments from us, Daniel?
I think it'd be worth reviewing those, Will, to get them into.
Yeah. Did you take notes there? Yeah.
I've been taking notes. I have got to confess, there's some interruptions happening behind me. So I just have one sort of specific action that Bonny provided about providing comprehensive sedimentation erosion plan. Is that, the rest I wasn't getting. Sort of, sorry, I'm gonna move my screen over. mention of cumulative effects. I'm not seeing sort of a specific action in that to ask council to direct staff.
Okay.
There was mention of a cheap.
There is the one that was around concerns around the aquifer supply or potential for aquifer depletion. Is there a recommendation around that?
So that, yeah, so that's, was an aquifer study done there. Do we have the capacity, Daniel, to identify the aquifer? I think that's part of a water study that has been sort of put aside until we have the money to conduct it. It's an island-wide.
Right, the water master plan is like an island-wide, you know, like public works project that is sort of the, like on the to be funded list.
Yeah.
But isn't that area under stress?
So we've completed a West Side water study that Urban Systems did, looking at the municipal water systems and other like this property. And I mean, essentially what it determined is assuming it basically assumed that the whole Arbutus Ridge area was zoned for secondary suites. And it found like there's sufficient water on the west side. What there is there's like an imbalance between which systems have sufficient water. So the King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay have excess water, and Blue Water has a shortage of water. So there's a need for like better, essentially management between those west side water systems, but that there is sufficient water for those systems.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And David, you had your hand up and then it came down?
Yeah, because Daniel, I was going to say what Daniel just said.
Okay.
But Jeff, you feel like you want some mention of that in this, do you?
I think it's been addressed. If what
Okay.
is, yep, from what Daniel just said, then perhaps there's no concern or recommendation that might be around
Okay.
aquifer depletion.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll have it in minutes. So was there something, Will or McKaylee, did you have something actionable to add to these comments?
I think I would suggest we support the proposed conditions. That includes the water supply, hydrant location, not really
Sorry,
our
can you repeat this bit?
stormwater management.
Did I miss one? Water supply.
Septic covenants, I guess. Stormwater management. Does that work for the committee?
Thumbs up from David.
Yeah, and we also encourage the public process. The public meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. We support the public process, the proposed public process.
One other item that may, I'm not too sure we landed, was with respect to soil stability and the geotechnical report, and whether soil stability with respect to climate change was considered, future soil stability. Where do we land on that one? Is there something kind of, left over there?
Is that part of this erosion plan or?
I think it's somewhat separate.
Okay, sorry,
They're related, most certainly, but.
Okay. That work?
Confirmed in light of climate change.
Well, I have a question about your comment about the committee taking on a kind of increased role around asking questions about cumulative effect. And I was wondering whether you were suggesting that when we're asked to comment on projects of this nature, whether there's some additional information we're seeking then. Was that the intent?
Yeah.
is our ask then that any information available on a cumulative effect
Yep.
be brought to the committee for its
Yep.
consideration?
Cumulative effects of development.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. This cumulative effect is joined at the hip with having a natural assets inventory, but that's coming up later. So.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's, and any more additions there?
Negative noun here. Effects of development on the local environment.
I'm sorry, your voice was breaking up there. Steph?
Yeah, I think that's fine, Steph.
Vote.
So is everybody happy?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, do we make a motion on that?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should.
Okay. Who's going to move that?
So moved, Jeff.
Jeff?
Second.
And McKaylee seconding it? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Looks like everybody?
Yep.
Unanimous? Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye now. All right. So we're moving on to number 5, business arising from the minutes, sustainable community grants discussion. Bonnie, do you want to take a lead?
Sure, it's that time again. We did receive some money from the old CAREP, so whatever it's called now. I mean, it hasn't been officially announced what it's going to transform into, but we did receive some money from the province. So we have about $4,000 to spend this year, or to allocate to some community-based climate action initiative, small scale initiatives. So we had set out as a committee, thanks so much everybody that was involved with sending out the criteria for the sustainable community grants. Excuse me. And I know last year there was a subcommittee struck. Carla led that with help from Councillor Hocking and a couple other committee members. So I'm hoping that we can advertise. Carla and I can take that on and advertise like we did before, and have a deadline of probably, open it for 4 weeks, and then we can evaluate, or that we can go through the criteria and the evaluation process, and allot some money to some community action, climate action. I know it's a fun thing. It's a really great thing. And I just wanted to give a little update. I reached out to the 2 recipients of last year's funding. So the first one was the Uncharted Waters film. So that was Hannah and Molly, some youth that were putting together a film about how sound. And they had been working steadily. They've been really good at sort of letting us know how things are progressing. There's been some setbacks with COVID and health and all sorts of things. But Hannah and Molly both said that we plan to have the film into sound and color grading over the next few weeks. And that was an email dated February 25th. So, and then we will definitely let the committee know. I said that we can help them with distributing the film and, you know, how that looks. Yeah, so that's an update there. And then the other recipient of last year's was the community greenhouse project. It was sort of contingent on them raising some other funds. So as of February 24th, David Adams emailed and said that over $36,000 has been raised by 20 donors. And he does have a list of all the actions that they've been taking. My suggestion to the committee is having Thrive, Bowen, and David coming to speak at our next meeting, if we can, just to give us some updates and you know, just fill us in on what the project is looking like. Yeah. So those are the updates, and so Carla and I will get some advertising out to the community, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Bonnie. So I guess, Steph, you can put the a request for a presentation by that group to our committee. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, and I see McKaylee's got her hand up. Oh no. She was just happy. The thing I was going to ask Bonnie is, do you want to ask for volunteers for the review committee now, or would you like to wait?
Either way, yeah. Carla's saying yes now because I think Carla will be the staff lead on that. So yeah, that'd be great.
Well, looking at the enthusiasm from both Rebecca and McKaylee, I'm wondering if you two are willing to be on that committee.
Sure.
Yeah. And Dawn, were you on the committee last time?
Does that mean I just volunteered?
Well, I'm just wondering if you want to volunteer.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Is that enough? You've got 3 big brains there. I think that's unless others want to join in too. Bonnie?
I was wondering if one of the councillors might be part of that as well. I know you're busy, David.
Yeah, I'm the only councillor here today. I was wondering if it's better if councillors are not on it, since it then goes to council. Bonnie, any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I guess because the subcommittee does bring back the options to this committee as a whole, so you can weigh in at that point. I know you were a good proponent for the choices made. Carla might have something to say.
We've said that there will be a councillor on the committee that's in the grant, in the documents for the grant application that come with the grant application.
Okay, okay, in that case, I volunteer.
Thanks, David.
There you go. Okay, well, thanks for the volunteers. And I think it'll be a fun group. And I'll leave it up to Carla to organize all that when the time comes. Thanks, Carla.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So the next is updates. And so the Onion Island update from Carla.
Thanks, Will. So I just wanted to, I think last meeting, I wasn't there, but Trisha, Beatty, and Wendy Sealbakes came to speak with you about Onion Island and the oyster catchers there. So we produced some signage with their help. They wrote some text for us, and they also had a friend provide some artwork, which is really beautiful, which we put on the signs as well. And I was able to speak with the province and get their permission to put a sign up right on Onion Island, which is nice. So it just asks people not to land there between May and the end of July. So I'll show you the signs that we have. So that was really great news from the province, because generally to do something like that, you'd have to get tenure, which is quite involved, but they just gave us the permission without having to do that. So we have two different signs. This one is a little bit shorter, like the text is shorter rather, so that it can be larger and seen from offshore. So we'll have a larger sign there, and then the next sign is a similar text, but it's trying to tell a bit more of a story. This is it, and we want to put these ones up at Tunstall and Sealy Park beaches.
Yeah. Carla, I'm just wondering, as a Sandy Beach user, there's almost always a pair of oyster catchers on the rocky groins that go out into the water there. I'm just wondering if there's extra money for one of those education signs, that might be a useful spot too.
I definitely have seen the oyster catchers out there as well. Every time, they're always at Sandy Beach. Well, I think we'd obviously have to change the wording a little bit because there's no Onion Island. But is there, if there's a specific place that we want to ask people to not walk along, do you think that they're nesting along the kind of pier out there, where the rocks are kind of piled up? I guess it's like a breakwater, old breakwater.
That might be what's going on. Not sure.
I just want to make sure, because for me, I think that goes underwater, doesn't it? At high tide?
There's some real high tides that it will go underwater. Yeah, I'm wondering if it would just, it might have to be a totally different sign that just don't harass these guys that are having a problem with being harassed. So
yeah, we'll keep that in our back pocket. I think that we can deal with this project as a discrete entity right now, but definitely I love oyster catchers and I do see them in Mannion Bay. So keeping that in mind, and I think it will be, we're going to talk a little bit, maybe, I don't know, in this meeting or next about with natural assets and all that. So I love the idea. Will, thank you so much.
Okay, great. And McKaylee, I saw your hand up.
I just wanted to say that I really love the personal nature of referencing Onion Island and really making that a care for this area type thing. Whereas if we make it a generic sign and start putting it up wherever oyster catchers occur, I think it would lose its meaning a little bit. So I think, and I'm not sure that the oyster catchers would be nesting at that location, because I think that does go underwater, especially with the spray splash, right, from waves. So I really think that it should just sort of stick to this one location.
Solidly said there, Kaylee. Well done. Yeah. Okay. Any more discussion? David.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Carla for this, and the committee or the group. It's a great sign, really nicely done.
Yeah.
And what McKaylee just said, I think, is really important. It attracts attention. If you see that on the beach, you're really not going to go out and disturb it. I mean, it's really, really well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks to Trish and Wendy as well, because it definitely was their idea and their their push to do it. So that's great.
Yep. All right. Great project. Thanks, Carla.
Just a quick question. Will there be an online component with the signage?
Absolutely, Don. So that's in my calendar for a social media campaign along with the signage.
Perfect. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Don.
Sorry, I realized, I should have one more comment, and sorry to just think of this now, but if you're going to put it up on the beach like that, the sign on the beach, the neighbors who live there should be told first, rather than suddenly say, hey, what's this sign? What's going on? Like there's a Sealy Park strata, you know, and I don't know when the next meeting is, but, you know, just call Jane Kellett or Colleen, you know, I don't know, one of those folks. And the same with Tunstall Bay, just so that they don't suddenly see this sign and wonder what's going on. I think it's appropriate to talk to the folks very, very briefly first in some way or another. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, David, the strata is being consulted at Sealy Park already. Yes, and also at Tunstall. We'll decide on the location. It probably won't be right on the beach. We don't like to put infrastructure into the beach itself, so we'll have to find the most logical place for the sign down there. Yeah, good points.
All right. So the next update is David with the Climate Action Strategy Subcommittee update.
Yeah, so we're still working on this. We've got more to do. So actually, we're going to ask if we could have another Google, whatchamacallit poll, a doodle poll, just to get the next meeting. So that's Michaela and Rebecca and Dawn and Will and me. Yeah. But so we're still working on this. But one interesting thing that's sort of come out of this is really doing two things. One is updating the climate strategy, but the other is doing, you know, the beginning of an annual would be great, but certainly a review of how the municipality is doing in terms of, or how we as a community are doing in terms of the quick win part, the things that we should be doing right now. And Rebecca came up with a really great idea, because a lot of the things aren't being done. And rather than just saying, okay, this hasn't been done, we'll add another column or two that says what the additional costs will be for not doing this, and what the additional risks are over time for not doing this. So just to really have a bit of an explanation that, yeah, it's not been done yet, and there's a cost to that. So more to come.
Thanks, David. Okay, and staff updates from Bonny.
Great. So thank you to the pesticide bylaw subcommittee. Council gave the bylaw second and third reading at Monday's meeting. So that's great. It will go back for final adoption on the 14th, I think is the next council meeting. So that's really great. Really appreciative to everybody involved. So yeah, that's good news. Thanks, Michaela, for your, yeah, it's good. And then just a little point about the Art Redison Nature Park. I know Councillor Nicholson had brought up just, you know, referring to it as that nature reserve, she had said. So what we've done since the last ECAAC meeting is, you know, we look at our designation within the parks plan. I mean, I was aware of it before too, but what's a better fit for a name for that area is the Art Redison Nature Park. Nature Park is a designation that's in the parks plan. And so what I did is I talked to Daniel, and Daniel reached out to the developer, who in turn reached out to the family, the Redison family, to see if they're okay with that name. And they were absolutely okay with that name. And also the term reserve, I've heard of late, is not desirable with reconciliation, not always doesn't evoke the most positive frames of reference. So Nature Park is our designation in our parks plan, so it works well with that area. And Carla and I will be working on sort of draft sort of terms of a management plan. And so I don't think the subcommittee will meet again. I got some great feedback during the first session, and the Parks and Trails Committee subcommittee for the Art Redison Nature Park gave us some great feedback as well. So we're going to be creating something that we then can bring to this committee and then subsequently to council to just sort of get a direction of sorts. So that's that. I've spoken to Metro Vancouver staff rep, and they're doing a cleanup of the Boyer Island and Passage Island, one in 5 years. And so this is really great when we can collaborate with other jurisdictions. So yet to be determined, but for a small fee, because there's a cost of removing marine debris from our island. You know, we have to truck it off the island and dispose of it. So we can sort of tag along with respect to the Metro project. They're very accommodating. The details are yet to be, sort of figured out, but we're looking at maybe doing an island-wide styrofoam removal. So what we would do, this is just preliminary thoughts, is focusing on, because they want to know what type of debris we'll be adding to their barge, because they'll just have they have a little runabout boat that can come and pick the items up and deposit them into the barge. So we were thinking maybe styrofoam for an island-wide, and we would have an area where people could drop that off, or we could maybe help pick it up and get rid of some of the dreaded styrofoam. Another thought was maybe some old fiberglass boats or bits of boats and such that are littering the beaches. So that's some thoughts. But more will be revealed. But I just wanted to highlight that it is a possibility that we'll have a community sort of highlighting the need for sort of beach cleanups. Might be a big project, but a good one, a community-wide project. Just a couple.
Just something that might be possible to piggyback onto that. I know quite regularly the group of divers will go and collect crud from the bottom of Mannion Bay and maybe other bays that are jettisoned from boats that are moored. And I'm wondering if having a barge come by just coordinate with that project with the dive project, so that we could get rid of some of that jetsam, the heavy stuff that's on the bottom in that motion too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really, there's a lot of garbage on the seafloor. There's no shortage. It's really alarming. Just being part of the Bowen Island Marina cleanup, it was just the tip of the iceberg. It was very, it's a severe problem. It's years and years and years. It's just the ocean has been But I just wanted to say that the divers for Cleaner Lakes and Oceans, they did the Bowen Island Marina dive. And we are organizing fits right into the next point that I want to bring up. We're organizing a dive under Union Steamship Company Marina. They're a great group. They're busy. They don't just come to Bowen. They go all over the place. They're all doing it volunteers. There's free divers and divers. So we've got one organized for March 26th. I just wanted to share. Share my screen and just show you this. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the poster that Carla made up for the event, and Bowen Island Municipality collaborates with the divers for Cleaner Lakes and Oceans, and Amber organizes it all. So this is going to be a big one. There is a chance, like what I've brought up in my marine stewardship groups that I attend, like the House Sound Ocean Watch Committee and other just groups that I'm involved in. When tenures, this is just perhaps something to think about, when provincial tenures, marine tenures are renewed, it might be a time where there might be a leverage point where part of that tenure renewal process could be a cleanup of the ocean floor. So we know that marinas, just in essence, it's just sort of, some by accident and some on purpose, garbage goes over the side, and they're just sites of extreme debris fields, as are underneath liveaboards. And that was documented by our divers that have worked so hard in Mannion Bay. So that's just a fact that wherever there's liveaboards, there seems to be a debris field, and wherever there's marinas, there is an accumulation of garbage on the seafloor. So anyway, this is a great positive initiative. So you're the first to know about it. So we'll be getting this out in social media. I'm really excited about it. It's a really good initiative. And I just wanted to, there's lots to update because there's so much going on. I wanted to update the committee on rainwater. I know this is a topic that we talked about last meeting. So I've spoken with our building inspector, and purple pipe can be installed as per the plumbing code from harvested rainwater to toilets. Of course, you'd probably want a way to fill the toilet during periods of drought, but that's good news. So that is permitted in the plumbing code. And then just fairly recently, like I'd say within the last month or so, Vancouver Coastal Health is now able to receive applications to potentially utilize rainwater for potable water within a dwelling. This is good news. So more will be revealed. I'm going to actually probably ask our building inspector to attend our next meeting. It's just kind of in a preliminary stage, but there is federal legislation, which I haven't got to researching what legislation yet, but I just wanted to give you this preliminary news that allows for the potable water, or the rainwater for potable water in buildings. So I guess there's some talk that local government could adopt some guidelines, but more will be revealed. But I just wanted to pass that along to the committee. I think it's really good news.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Lots of good stuff going on.
Yeah, I just wanted to just see if that's everything. Yeah, I think that's it. Yep, that's everything.
Great, thanks a bunch. Good stuff. So
We've got David's hand up now.
oh, okay, David.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. And this whole thing of potable water from the roof puzzles me because an item later on our agenda where Will is going to be, or well, we asked it put on about the garden club wanting us to talk about collection of rainwater from roofs. If you watch the video on the garden club site, it shows that the folks in Evergreen are using their rainwater from the roof for potable water. So they got approval somehow. And I'm not sure how this all happened and works and so on, but there's something, it's being done already. Maybe we just need to talk to Mr. Reed, the developer, to ask, okay, did you require it? I think he did. But how did it work? So anyway, it's being allowed, and it already was allowed to at least some degree.
Yeah. Thanks, David. Yeah, that was on my mind too after seeing that video. Is how'd they do that? Yeah. Yeah. Don?
I'm just going to say, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, there is no provincial bylaw that says you can't do it. Vancouver Coastal Health actually encourages it as long as you meet their guidelines. And they have specific guidelines about how to use rainwater to make it potable water. So it's not an impossibility, and lots of people on the island are doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Don.
I think what's new, and again, I don't have a real comprehensive idea about everything about this, but what's new is Vancouver Coastal Health is, I guess, now accepting applications to do it, like whether before people did it, but now it's sort of almost legitimizing it. That's my understanding through our building inspector. So yeah, anyway, it's
yeah.
I'm curious to delve in and to find out what Evergreen's doing, and
yeah,
just moving forward with promoting promoting. And I think too, just knowing that the purple, from cistern to purple pipe into toilet is that's really good to know as well, because that's allowable in the plumbing code.
Great. All right. So I think that's covers.
Michaela's got her hand up. Well,
Oh, Michaela, sorry.
I just wanted to ask about the beach cleanup. I wanted to know if maybe we could include tires in that. A lot of times you come across tires either just on their own or filled with concrete. I guess they've been used as a buoy or something. So it'd be great to include that in the removal. And then I had somebody contact me about a year ago they found a bunch of lead boat weights at the one by the golf course, the beach there, Seymour Bay, is that what it's called? And they asked me what they should do with them. I didn't know. So I was hoping that maybe somebody here knew.
I think lead's really valuable, and I think the recycling would love to get that.
Okay.
Carla's got her hand up.
I just wanted to add a little bit to the conversation about water sustainability. And I'm a bit late on this, but just because we were talking about earlier the aquifers, I wanted to show you this map that you can access online in the Provincial Aquifer Map, because I had a feeling that for that subdivision that they were right on the line, and they really are. I'm just going to share my screen for a sec. So right here, you can see that, and I don't know how they concluded this, but we have 7 different aquifers on the island, if everyone wasn't aware. And it just so happens that that subdivision is like right in here. So it is right on the line, and it doesn't draw from the same aquifer as King Edward Bay, just for your interest.
Yeah.
But it also brought up for me that I was thinking about how we have, I just recently, someone from the province came over, and they're putting in another observation well out at the end of Mutiny Lane down here. And so that's just something to add to the update. They've installed some temporary equipment just to monitor the levels and to see if it's appropriate for bringing into the observation well network. For those of you that don't know, we already have 2 wells in the observation network, one in Singing Woods and one on Channelview. So it's really great for us because it's free data, and if we get another one, then that's even better, especially in this aquifer, right? So a lot of it's monitored through telemetry, and it's pretty cool. So that's it.
Yeah, it'd be great to have a well in each one of at least one well in each one of the aquifers. That'd be great.
Well, and also just to, on that point, to remind everyone, if you ever hear of any wells that aren't being used that we might be able to bring into the network, we're happy to take them.
All right. Thanks, Carla. That's great stuff. Okay, so new business. And I'm up for talking about natural assets. One of the things that for me is, I think it's really important, but I also realize that we have really good staff that are really busy with other things. And so I think what our committee could do to be of assistance is start an outline of what a natural assets inventory of Bowen Island could be. And we've got a neighbor in Gibson's, the town of Gibson's, which has an inventory, and they're very interested in sharing what they know. And so I would suggest that one thing we could think of is form a subcommittee that would have a look at that Gibson's project, maybe talk to some of their people and start an outline of what we could see as the main things that should be in a Bowen inventory. So we've got Carla and Bonny that are staff that have probably been thinking about this, and I'm wondering if that's an idea that works for you. Bonny.
I just wanted to, in my staff update, I wanted to say, which is related to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Will, is that council resolved on Monday night. They passed the recommendation that council direct the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee to provide recommendations for the development of a natural assets inventory as resources permit. So it's council has endorsed that action.
All right. So my suggestion is I've got suggestions for a subcommittee, and I know Jeff is busy as heck, but I would think Jeff's got a strong background, and McKaylee, and I would throw my hat in the ring there too. Don's interested as well.
I'm very keen.
I'm keen, yep.
Yep. McKaylee?
I'm sorry, I missed all of that. My computer died.
Well, I was waxing eloquent about the need for a natural assets inventory, and Bonny said that council has directed that our committee start on investigating that. And so I suggested a subcommittee that includes you.
Okay, then. Yes, thank you for catching me up, and I'd be happy to give some time to that.
Yeah. And you'd have to deal with Jeff and Don and I. So I think it would be a great subcommittee. So
I think it would be pleasant. Thank you.
yeah. So I think what I can do is I can do a doodle poll and see when people are available to at least start thinking about this.
Sounds good.
All right, great. And so the next one is Committee of Council Process and Procedures. This was brought up by Don as an issue that we need some clarification of. Is what? Well, I might leave this to Don because he's been doing some thinking about it, and I think the one thing I'm going to say is I don't think this is that we want to be antagonistic or going against what council wants us to do. But anyway, Don, can you speak to, you sent me an outline earlier today that maybe you should take up on.
Well, thanks, Will. First of all, apologies to everyone for all my email. And I think that's what probably got us to this discussion. I guess the question is, how do we want to communicate with each other? And I think David's example in our last round of, I'm going to call them private meetings or subcommittee meetings, where we used our personal email and we met individually or we met collectively to discuss issues and then bring those issues back to the committee. Is probably a good example of how we want to continue. The idea of shutting down or dampening enthusiasm, I think, is just in the wrong spirit of why we're here. So anything we can do to encourage transparency, anything we can do to encourage a collegial relationship is in a committee meeting or subcommittee meeting, I think is important. Some of the comments were made that, I think we want to encourage dialogue. And what's that mean? Probably personal email as opposed to BIM email. I think ultimately, if we ever got into an issue that all of our email, if it was related to a BIM issue, whether it's personal or whether it's on BIM council email, it's still going to be subject to freedom of information. So what we say to each other and what we do with each other is probably going to, or could be called out for the public record, whether it's in this meeting or whether it's in a private meeting. So I don't, and again, I don't think, to Maureen's comment, we're not here to make decisions. We're just here to make recommendations. So my only suggestion is we don't use, in subcommittee meetings or questions, we don't use BIM email, that we use our personal email to connect with each other. And if we have questions and want to go beyond that, we do so. I mean, I think it's a fairly painless process. But again, we do not want to dampen or shut down conversations.
Okay, thanks, Don. I'm interested in getting input from David and Maureen when she's available, and staff about what are our parameters for communication as a committee and subcommittee.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, everything that Don said all sounds just fine. I'm trying to remember what was it that actually, because I'm forgetting. What was it that actually sort of caused the problem? Where was sort of Maureen worrying that we were going over the line?
Yeah, her key points were issues arise when substantive matters get discussed outside of committee meeting and decided. We've never decided.
Right.
She's concerned about discussions taking place on committee email, and that there are transparency issues and freedom of information concerns. And we've already addressed that. So those were her three biggest concerns.
Can I speak to? Oh, sorry, David.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, for the years and many committees that we've had in the email groups, is when you feel like you're getting close to a decision-making discussion, that's when you want to reel it in. Not just this group, all the groups over many years. So there's one thing to share articles and information. This group is really active in sharing information. It's wonderful and it's exciting. But as soon as the discussion starts to become like a decision is in play, then you're now sort of in quorum. You're now having some kind of a meeting that's not on YouTube and there's no minutes being taken.
But
so
actually,
in the, sorry, I just want to just finish my thought. In the terms of reference, we talk about subcommittees, it's section 3.6 of the terms of reference. Subcommittees report back to our big committee. I prefer written. Council Hocking will remember Susanna Braun was great about the Transportation Advisory Committee. She would provide notes. That's also a lot to ask of volunteers. Verbal updates are okay, but to have those reports come back, they're on camera, they go into the minutes. When it happens on email, so now what are we doing? Are we taking the email exchange and including those in the agenda or the minutes? Is someone doing a verbal report on what happened in those discussions in the minutes? Mm-hmm. That's the end of my thought. The conversation of that sort of substantive nature needs to be reflected for the public, and not to dampen, not to anything, just to be aware that there's quorum in that discussion and the public doesn't know what's happening.
Okay.
Very well said. Very well said. Thanks, Steph. I think, yeah.
Thanks, Steph. It's great having you here because you've got so much experience with this. So I'm really happy to have your input. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, just to keep this in perspective, all I wanted to know if there were other birds on the island that were in trouble other than the ones on Oyster Island. So that's where this conversation started from. And we know that our committee is not here to make decisions. We're only here to make recommendations. You know, we're not, this is not a council. Council takes our ideas or our recommendations, presumably, to council at some point, and council decides. So all we're trying to do is figure out how not to see the end of the world in 10 years. Anyways,
Okay, so
I think
any more comments or input from folks? So I think my conclusion is anytime I'm unsure of something, I'm going to ask staff. But I think the Don's point that we're not decision makers is important, but I think the idea of making sure that anything that goes on in the subcommittee is reported in sufficient detail to the committee in when we're being taped. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on. You're happy with that, Don?
Yeah, I am. I think it's a good start. I mean, it lays out some fundamental directions in terms of how we can communicate with each other and share ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah. And I like the enthusiasm that this committee has too. I think let's keep that.
Yeah.
All right. So other business?
So we have Councillor Hocking's update and then the Garden Club letter.
Yeah. Okay. David?
Sure. Yeah, a few things happened recently on the climate change front, and I just wanted to go over them if it might be a bit useful. First of all, we've all heard about the IPCC report and the warning that's come out from that, and it's been repeated or it's been covered in the media fairly generally. There was also a recent report by the US NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration on sea level rise. And it was just a recent report, at least a foot, it's American, so it's in feet and inches, at least a foot by 2050, and 2 feet or more by the end of this century. Then there was a really interesting, and I don't know how many people watch this because I think I sent the link around. Metro Vancouver, a few of us at Metro Vancouver had a conversation with a scientist who was working in Antarctica on the Thwaites Glacier. And I can talk a little bit about that and the issue of sea level rise. If anyone wants to, because sea level rise, the tricky part about sea level rise is the amount of uncertainty. And the IPCC, estimates that it'll be somewhere around 1 meter, and that's sort of by the end of the century, and that's kind of what we're using. But there's real uncertainty, and there are 2 things about that. One is, what is the emission reduction path that we're going to be on? And we don't know. That's up to us as societies. But the other is what's going on in Antarctica. And so it was really interesting talking to this scientist. And if anyone wants to watch it, I can send you the link. But I'll give you the brief story. Is that the Thwaites Glacier is a giant glacier, and it's floating. It's on the ocean, and it's melting rapidly. What he was doing as a scientist is he was drilling through the glacier and try to get a sense of the temperature of the water underneath, because that's sort of where the melting is happening. And so it seems that the winds have moved the tides and currents, and the water underneath is really warm, and so it's melting fast. But that won't raise sea level because it's a floating glacier. So it's like an ice cube in a glass. When it melts, it doesn't raise the water level in the glass. But it's called the Doomsday Glacier by some because it's like the stopper in a bottle. Once it's gone, then the ice that's on land can start flowing into the ocean. And the question that I asked the scientist is, okay, the IPCC has all these estimates of sea level rise. Does it include what he's looking at here? And the answer is no. And so it's really the issue of sea level rise is it's a faraway problem. We can sort of not worry about it, but it's so critical in so many things in terms of the decisions we make, particularly around land use in the next year. So just sort of an update on that. And if anyone wants to watch that, it's, he's an interesting guy. He's a Canadian scientist. He's from BC. The other thing is the IPCC.
Send it to everybody, David. I suggest you send it to everyone.
Okay, I will. And it's what I'm going to send you, because I could probably find a link to the actual thing. I'm going to send you the Metro Vancouver's chair update from Sav Dollawell, the chair of the board. And it's the first item on that. You can look at the rest if you're interested, but it's the first item is that video. The other thing is the IPCC report itself. I've shared it around. Some of you would have looked at it, but generally the IPCC reports are really somewhat impenetrable. And if you want, I can show you, I can do a screen share and show you some data where you can actually understand what this is all about pretty quickly. The reason it's impenetrable is that the IPCC is an intergovernmental organization that in order to say anything, every country in the world has to agree to it. So it's a super conservative organization, and it's for every little fact or output that it sees, it then tells you the level of certainty about that potential fact. This is highly certain, or this is kind of uncertain, or we really don't know about this. And so that's why it's so impenetrable and hard to read. But if you want to actually look at a part of just a couple of pages of that report that kind of tell you everything in a couple of graphs, and I can share them on my screen if you want, or if you want me to do that.
Yes, and I think you should also send us the link to it too.
I'll send you the link afterwards to this whole thing. I think I did already. So Steph, can I share my screen? Am I allowed to, or do I need special permission or something?
You may share.
Okay. Well, now I gotta find it. Here we go. Okay. All right. So now look at these graphs and you think, oh my God, how do I understand these? So this is on page, just partway down the report, and it's the simple part of the report, the decision makers summary or something like that. So first I look at the line graphs on the left that are going up. Those are the temperature rise potential graphs. And the ones that are in blue are from a scenario that's kind of called the sustainability scenario. And you can see that goes from sort of a 1.5 degrees to up to about 2 1/3 degrees, something like that. The red lines are more business as usual. They're called they're basically business as usual, how it had been just a couple of years ago. Maybe it's changing now. So those show you some potential rises in temperature. Then on the right, we have how different systems will react to these different temperatures. So the first bar graph going straight up is unique and threatened ecosystems. Now have a look at the temperature over the left, on the left. Okay, 1.5 degrees, and you see that thin dotted line going across in the lower down. That's where we are right now. That's our current temperature, and the gray sort of band is it varies in different parts. Like it's higher up in the Arctic, lower in some other areas. But that dotted line is where we are right now. And now have a look at the legend. Oh, I can't see the legend because of all your faces. How do I get rid of those? If I move it, can I move this over to the left? Probably not. No.
You can collapse the faces, David, by there's a little plus or minus thing by the faces. Click on the minus.
My faces have disappeared, so you can see the legend on the right if you do the same thing. So you can see the purple is very high risk or impact, then red is high, then the yellowy or orange is moderate, and then undetectable in white. So unique and threatened systems are not looking good. And then you see the little dots. So 4 dots is a very high confidence level, and 3 dots is a high confidence level. So you can see unique and threatened systems and then extreme weather events just to the right of that. And you can see kind of where we are and where we could be if things get above 1.5 or 2 degrees. And these graphs, and I'm now going to move down the page, and there's a whole series of these. On here you can see impacts and risks to terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems. So again, you can see where we are with a little dotted line going across, and you can see biodiversity loss. And once we get above 1.5 degrees, it gets very bad. Then you can see tree mortality, wildfire increase. Then you got ocean ecosystems to the right of that, and you see warm water corals. They're in a mess already. And then you can keep going down. We've got health outcomes for people across the world. I'm not going to spend any time, but you can look at all these. And then it gets into specific areas. Africa, that first graph you can see is Africa, food production and so on in Africa, not good at all. Water availability in the Mediterranean and so on. Loss of coral reefs in Australia, other impacts in Australia, costs and damage in North America. So you can work through all of these just by looking at these graphs. You can kind of get a sense of everything that you're trying to figure out. Then if you wander a few pages down, you look at what we can do about adaptation. And it'll pop up on the screen. Here we are. And okay, again, a complicated graph, a zillion dots. What on earth does this mean? And we'll only look at the top line and I'll explain it quite simply. So first of all, the size of the circle, you can see the big circles are high feasibility level, medium, and then low. And then the colors, blue is the dimensions of potential feasibility, whether it's high, medium, or low, and then, whether it's a high, medium, or low confidence level, getting back to that confidence level. So let's just look at the first two, and you can get a sense of adaptation and what it means and how difficult it is. So the first line, coastal socio-ecological systems. Interesting, they're calling it socio-ecological because it affects both people and the natural environment. So the first line is coastal defense and hardening. In other words, dikes. The bottom one is integrated coastal zone management. In other words, green shores type of approach. And if you look at them along the coastal defense and hardening, it can be done economically, technologically, institutionally. Yeah, there's governments that can do kind of stuff like that. But if you look at environment, it's got a very small dot because it's a very bad thing for the environment. Fish habitat need shallow water. You harden the coast, you lose your fish habitat. And then you look at the integrated coastal zone management, you can see technologically much harder, institutionally harder. Governments are under pressure to save a bunch of land, but it's environmentally much better. So this, now I'm not going to do any more on this, but you can go through this chart and kind of get a sense of how all this works. And I'll send you the link after the meeting. So yeah, I'll unshare my screen. How do I do that?
Stop button on the top.
Stop share. There we go. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
so,
David. David, I looked at, I read that document, and I've got to say I bounced off those graphs because of the complexity. But you've given me the key to understanding. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Will. I mean, I've been seeing these reports for a zillion years, and they're really important, but almost no one in the world understands them. And so we're left to read the newspaper reports. And the Globe and Mail was good, Guardian was good, The Economist is good, New York Times is good, CBC is good. So they were good reports. I never bothered looking at Fox News. I often check. I'm sure it wasn't even covered.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, David.
That's a comment.
Yeah, David, just a question. I mean, this latest report is not really a surprise, but I'm surprised. I guess I'm curious about what your takeaway is with the accumulation of the headlines. If you were going to summarize your feelings about what you read and what you feel, what would you say? It's
that the science is demonstrating as the science has developed, and the way IPCC works, basically it's a meta-analysis. So they're looking at all the scientific work that's been done on that topic and then on that topic and looking at, okay, what does it mean? So the scientific evidence is getting more and more clear that the impacts are as severe as presented, or more severe. Things are moving more quickly in a bad direction than might have been anticipated. And it certainly confirms that we really need to do the best we can to keep emissions to 1.5 degrees and certainly below 2 degrees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thanks, David.
Bonnie's got her hand up.
Oh, hi, Bonnie. Sorry, I missed you.
I just know I did skim article about the Doomsday Glacier.
Oh, yeah.
And what really stood out for me in my skimming was the risk to freshwater resources with salts infiltration with sea level rise. And so that just highlights, just because we have been talking a lot about water sustainability, and yeah, for me, that just really stood, I mean, among many other things, but first, just when I skimmed that particular point stood out. And I know everybody's aware of that, but it's just another thing that just reinforces just the need. I mean, fresh water is such a valuable commodity on this planet. It's just like a little drop in the bucket compared to the salt water.
And just a little bit more on that. There is a Canadian section of this report. I haven't read it yet, but I'll have to go look for it because it'll be presumably in the bigger report rather than in this summary report. But it talks about the prairies getting drier, but of course also the glaciers are disappearing, and they provide summer water as well to the prairies. So water is a problem.
Yeah. Well, the prairie cities are dependent on the major rivers flowing through, which are all glacier fed, and right now Calgary is already there's the Bow River is spoken for. All the water in the Bow River is spoken for. So you cut down that supply from glaciers, and they'll be in trouble faster than you can say Jack Robinson.
I guess I could add one more thing, if you don't mind me talking a little bit longer. And this is about the difficult challenges that we face. We face these. So I was at a Metro Board meeting last Friday, and you probably saw in the news that this proposal from Surrey was approved. And it was to go beyond the urban containment boundary. It means transportation away from nowhere near transportation networks. It means more pollution, and it paving over some important watersheds. And I voted against it, but there was a very, very narrow decision to in favor of this. But it was a hard, we can also blame Surrey, but no, actually, because they were working on this for 10 years. The tricky part about all this is the decisions we face are really tough. They're never simple, and they're the same on Bowen. I could tell you things that I'm not happy about that we're doing that I've agreed to, because the decisions are really tough. They involve all sorts of things. Often they'll involve spending more money. Folks on Bowen don't want an increase in their taxes. So we have to worry about that. So I just want to really emphasize that for me, it's really easy for me to be holier than thou and, finger point and all that. But for most governments, the decisions actually are really difficult.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
As the spouse of a councillor, I see that all the time too. Yeah. Okay. Last item here is the Garden Club letter, and I'm just going to blast through this. I'm not sure if. Oh, sorry.
Do you want me to share screen, or has everyone read it?
It's
Everyone's read it?
Everyone's read it?
I'll do a quick share.
Oh, put it up. If people haven't had a chance to see the video that's in there too, that's great. It's we see friends and neighbors that are doing things about water storage and collection that is inspiring. I think that the two things I think that are important in this letter are that the Garden Club is saying, we hope that you join us in urging the municipality to take a leadership role in water conservation practices. And they're talking about new buildings coming online, municipal buildings. And this is a chance for the municipality to, as Don says, walk the talk. So have water collection on those buildings. I would expect low flush toilets would be a part of this too. All kinds of things that showing what you can do to collect and conserve water. And we've got these. Is it David? There's three big things coming up. There's the fire hall. There's the municipal. The
Community center.
Yeah.
Community center, and I think the medical center. I'm not sure that's really a municipal thing, but
yeah, it's not
that
right.
Yeah, but it certainly could be showing leadership there too. So I think that's the thing, and the other thing quote I'm going to give is we urge council to set in place a water conservation collection and storage building design policy for the municipality, commercial and residential buildings. So that's the two things that I think they're saying. They're asking that ECAAC join them in urging council to do this. And so my suggestion is that we join them in urging council to do those things. McKaylee.
I think this would be a great opportunity to dovetail into the conversation that we had as the Climate Action Strategy Review Committee, where we talked about looking into sending a letter to the municipality to urge them to not only look at water conservation, but also up the ante with building and building a higher leads, I guess it was. I can't remember what the categories were. I think the buildings are currently a category 3. And again, to walk the talk, we should be aiming for a lot higher than that. And so I think sending a letter to the municipality with these points and then including our own as well would be a good start.
More discussion? Oh, Don?
Yeah, I'd probably be, not surprisingly, a little stronger than that. And I think it's important that, I mean, first of all, just to get it out there, I don't know why the fire chief was copied or why the letter was sent to the fire chief, but I'm sure there was some wisdom in that. But if the council or if the municipality doesn't take a leadership position in climate change, what are we doing? If we're not, if these new buildings aren't going to consider, all the environmental needs that should be asked of them in 2022, then why are we asking residents to do the same thing? I mean, there's a hypocrisy in this conversation. So I think it's critical that we make a recommendation that that the council or the municipality walk the talk. They have to take a leadership position in climate change if we're going to save ourselves.
Okay, thanks, Don. So I think it's agreed that we should make recommendations to council on those 2 points that I brought up. based on the letter. Would you like me to draft a letter that the committee would review and make a decision about at our next meeting? David?
Why not just have a recommendation coming out of this recommendation council that, you know, that we work with, or we in unison with the garden club, and recommend that, and then that, you know, and then whatever those words were in terms of water conservation and water collection.
So would that recommendation happen at the next meeting? Or
We can vote on it today.
okay.
Yep.
I gotta get to work.
It's right there before us in
Yep.
the end of the letter.
Oh shoot, this is.
I mean, I think, you know, a letter would be fine, but I think, you know, we're a committee, we make recommendations to council.
I think that's better.
Water folks from the garden club, and the garden club, I mean, okay, so we're a bunch of environmental advocates, but the garden club are plain old bone people who work in their gardens and know we're really short of water.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, so I've got that the committee recommend that council direct staff to work in unison with the garden club on the following. Sorry, I'll just do a share screen. Yes.
Yep.
Is it to work in unison with the garden club or take
No.
the recommendations of the garden club?
We're taking the recommendation, yeah.
We're,
Yeah.
we're supporting the letter. We're supporting their recommendations.
Yeah, supporting the recommendation of the garden club that, blah, 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 yeah.
And encouraging the municipality to do the same in a leadership position.
I
Yep.
think it's good to throw that little bit from Dawn on, yeah.
To support, sorry.
The garden club?
Garden club letter. You want
Okay,
to name the,
the municipality to take a leadership role in water conservation practices.
Sure.
Thereby walking the talk regarding water
No.
conservation.
No, less is
no,
more.
wait, I'm not doing that.
Less,
There's no way.
less is
I think
more.
Yep.
I suggest that the leadership goes first, that the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee recommend that council, and then just take a leadership role in water conservation. And
Mhm.
and then act on the garden club. I don't know the exact words here. Garden club recommendation. That
Act on the recommendations.
Yep.
the recommendation of the garden club that, and then just paste it in. Garden club 2,
Yep.
and then it was
Yep.
conservation.
Yep.
Okay, and then I've got to find these recommendations from the
Yeah.
letter.
Right at the end of the letter.
So which ones are
Right down the
these?
bottom, we urge council to set in place a water conservation collection. See near the end, Steph, just
Yep.
the
This one
italic-
here?
Yeah, the second to last, yeah, that one right there.
Yep.
Okay, and then we're gonna move that one over to here. Was there another one?
I think that's it.
That's it. Sorry, you got my notes here. Next agenda. Okay,
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, looks good.
McKaylee, I see you're pensive. Yes.
I'm happy with this part, but I don't think it includes all the things that we talked about. We
Yep.
also, we're looking at the buildings that are going in, not only from a water conservation standpoint, but actually in a construction materials and that sort of thing that was coming out of the last subcommittee discussion. And I think maybe we need to have a second item that basically indicates that we recommend the council take the leadership role also in building materials or whatever to, again, walk the talk in the construction of the municipal buildings.
Maybe, Haley, I'm just thinking maybe it would be better if we wait until we've completed our work in that subcommittee, and then that would come out of that. Since this is, I think this little one, I think by itself with the garden club, it's strong.
Yeah, I see it, Don.
Yeah.
I see that. I am really worried that we're going to miss an opportunity if they're in the process of doing construction now, that they're not going to bother looking at alternate materials for construction that meet these needs, that we're missing the boat. These buildings are getting built now. And if we miss this, the next buildings that the municipality will be doing are what, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? I'm worried that we're going to miss the boat with it.
I have a note to invite Greg Cormier to the next meeting. He's the one who talks about step code and building materials. Do you think that would be an opportunity to flesh out a recommendation next meeting?
I think, Michaela, so you're saying in terms of the design of the community center, the buildings that are being done right now, is that what you mean?
That's right, that they should be held to task to choose appropriate materials that meet these needs. I mean, the design, we can't do anything about that. But we can say we recommend that you choose materials that will meet this need. And at least it's a step closer. At the moment, there's no guarantee that they're looking at that.
Yeah, I see Don's hands up. But I'm going to jump in front of Don just to say, I suggest that we make two motions, and you know we leave. We don't encumber the garden club motion with this additional stuff, that we make that as a separate motion. And so that's my suggestion. Don, you had your hand up and you've been very patient.
No, I really like that. I like your recommendation. It's not what I had in mind, but it definitely suffices. I think the issue I have is that we urge council to set in place a water conservation collection and storage building design policy for all municipal, all commercial, and all residential. I think that covers absolutely everything, including materials. But Michaela's point, and I think your suggestion of having a separate amendment or recommendation, is strong, because it acknowledges that they missed the boat on the fire hall and on the community center, and that it has to be addressed. Otherwise the municipality cannot take a leadership position. It has to go back and fix those things while they're still new. So I like it. I think it's great.
Okay. So is everybody happy with the first motion that's highlighted there?
Yep.
Any further comment? Okay, can we have a motion?
Mover,
Pardon?
mover,
Mover? Don?
Don.
Michaela seconds. And all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Michaela, can you articulate this?
I'm specifically thinking about the new buildings, which would be the fire hall and the community hall. And I don't think the health center probably meets this, but That's just because I don't know that much about who's in charge of the project. And it came out of the subcommittee where we were looking at, and I was looking for my notes, but we were talking about insulation and other building materials that if you choose this product over this product, it will actually lower the carbon footprint of the building. And so that's what I want to urge the building, the municipal or the council to do, is start looking at these materials and including them.
Yep. David, what's the term there? Embodied carbon or
lower embodied energy. So
Yeah.
construction materials with lower embodied energy.
Thank you. I was looking for my notes and I knew I had that scribbled somewhere.
Do you think that you want to put something in brackets, or will you just explain to council what that means?
I'll explain it.
Okay.
Yeah. Don's got his hand up.
Yeah, just a comment under Action Advisory Committee recommend that I would suggest that it would be all new infrastructure, including the fire hall and community center, and then say are constructed with materials, because that
Yep.
sets the path for the future. But the one thing, and somehow I don't know how to language this, but the idea that we have to go back and we may need to go find government funding to make up for water capture that's not included in either of the two new buildings.
Yeah.
And I think we can capture, I think we can, for those things that were missed or not part of the budget, there should be an aggressive search for funding to remedy that.
Okay.
If I might ask, I'm a little bit confused about the fire hall and how that fits in, given the fact that it's nearing completion. How the rainwater part of it, I get there could be some retrofitting, and Dawn, I think you've got some good thoughts on that front. The fire hall is, walking by it the other day, it is close to completion.
Yeah.
Well, you could go back a step or two, while it looks like we and other committees are supposed to be consulted, unless I'm mistaken, we were never asked our opinion or thoughts about the new buildings.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's just an oversight, but there was very little environmental consideration that went into the construction of either building, which again, does not put the municipality in a leadership role.
Okay. So we take out the fire hall. Is that agreed?
Yeah. It is virtually completed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take out the fire hall.
Sorry, can we add the health center and maybe Birch as well?
They're private. I mean, the health center is basically a group that are donating their own money. And Birch, there's nothing there right now. But if the words all new infrastructure, including the community building infrastructure, I think it's not infrastructure, all new building.
And is it municipal infrastructure or?
I think we'll have to say municipal.
That works.
I don't like lower. Feels like it needs to compare to something.
Yeah. Yep.
Good.
Would this then capture any future septic infrastructure that goes in to offset the I guess expired septic facilities?
Would, yeah. I have another meeting, folks, in 3
Yep.
minutes.
Okay. So I think just if we can add on a little sentence there, and that community advisory groups such as ECAAC and Parks, Trails, and Greenways be consulted regarding all new municipal buildings.
I don't know if in Parks and Trails that's not in their terms of reference.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think, but ECAAC for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just talk about us.
Yeah.
Does that cover it for you, Don?
It doesn't speak to going back and getting funding to fix the things that were forgotten.
I think that's a third one, Don.
Okay, all right. Yes.
And it's I don't think it's as urgent as this one.
We could debate that over a beer.
Okay.
I need help with this sentence. That ECAAC be provided with,
An opportunity to review.
thank you.
Thank you.
Review new buildings, review the energy efficiency of new buildings,
Energy efficiency and water
energy and water efficiency. of new
water
buildings.
footprint. Yeah, water efficiency. That'll cover it.
Does energy efficiency encompass the carbon footprint as well?
It's a good point. Energy efficiency usually refers to the efficient use of the building.
Yeah. So let's use throw in carbon impact.
Might we keep it broad and just talk about environmental implications?
Yeah, that's probably better.
That's much better.
Better, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can get this done before David has to leave. Do we have a motion? Don, seconder? McKaylee? In favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Great meeting.
Great work.
Okay, I think I'm going to suggest we Don and I put have a discussion either by email or in the next, maybe the whole committee talks about the Don's suggestion of suggesting that the municipality look for funding to upgrade the new buildings.
Water capture.
Yeah, water capture and that kind of thing. And maybe let's leave it at that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And David, I think you've got a day full of meetings.
There's in the information items, there is the water conservation report from Patrick. If people want to take a look at that.
Yep.
Item 8.2.
I'm going to have to
Sorry.
drop out.
Thanks,
I
David.
do actually. I have to also go. Apologies.
Thanks,
Yep.
everybody. Bye
I
now.
think we're losing the quorum. We'll have to.
It's okay, just on your own time. I just
Yep.
want you to know it's provided there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.